Hey, welcome to 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. We're a father-son leadership podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And, folks that are watching us on YouTube, you'll see that I'm not in my normal office. I have the honor and privilege to be sitting in the General Ames Library in the Marines Memorial Club in San Francisco, California. And it is an amazing room. If I was more talented, I would pan the camera around and show you. But it is quite an honor and a privilege to sit here and be in this building. I'm here to hang out with a bunch of other veteran entrepreneurs. So looking forward
I,
to the conversations.
I got to call you out a little bit though, Dad, because that does
Yeah.
look like your office, just from a slightly different angle. If we're being honest, you still got the bookshelves, you got the American flag. Like, come on.
That's true. It is very similar, but there's a lot more books here.
I
Although
bet.
I've surveyed the inventory here, and quite a few of the books that are here are books that I have in my own personal library. So yeah, it's pretty
It means
cool.
you're doing it right.
And speaking of books, our guest Wally Elibiary, and I did not, neither did you, Camden, ask how to say your last name before we started talking. Did I get close, Wally? I apologize.
Yeah, exceptional, exceptional. It's Wally Elibiary, like you're
Uh,
sick, Elibiary. But I thought I was I give you a 95 out of 100. That was really good.
all right. Well, that's better than I ever did in school, so I'll run with that. Hey, so
Yeah.
as I sat here, as I sit here with all these books, you're an avid reader. I think I saw something that you, for like the last 9 years, you read 50 books a day. Is that the right math?
Definitely not a day, but it's over 50 books a year. Um,
Oh, did I say a
so
day?
yeah,
If you did, yeah,
it
that was
sounds like
not
Professional
the right
reader.
math. I think that's the point there.
yeah. So I read a book a week. I've read a book a week now for the last 11 years, and to me, it's a great way to kind of open up and change your mindset of what you're wanting to kind of look at there. But more importantly, it gets me. I reach out to the author on every single book I read, and when I read a book, it's first thing that I do is I'm writing out 10 ahas that I learned from the book, top 10 things I want to implement that I've learned from the book, and then also from there, I break down what I want to implement next 30 days, next 60 days, next 90 days. And then I send that report usually to the author and see if they were open to a Zoom call or a phone call to help me implement what they teach. So been an amazing, amazing way to capture a lot of mentors in my life that have given me time and have poured in me because of how deep dive I did their book.
What is your process for finding that next book? Because I think that's a really interesting thing. You know, when you talk about that kind of a volume, I mean, gosh, Wally, I mean, I would guess there's probably about 200 really, really, really good books out there that apply to your life and they're super applicable, like all that kind of stuff. You knock that out in 4 years. Now you're on to the next thing of like, all right, well, how do I fill these? How do I find that next thing that I can apply?
Yeah, every December I have an honest conversation with myself of where my weakest part of my game is. And every year I focus on the next 12 months of how do I take the weakest part of my game to make it the strongest part of my game. So for example, my strongest part of my game is mortgage. So I don't really necessarily need to like do any I've done it for 25 years, so hopefully I'm good at it by now. But to me, it's like the digital marketing space. I just wrote my first book end of last year. It hit Amazon bestseller, Barnes and Noble bestseller, but also Wall Street Journal, the bestseller list, which was an amazing accomplishment. However, I built an academy that went with the book. Well, I've never built an academy before. So I'm now reading books about how to build an academy. Now, okay, I've made a private Facebook group. Well, I don't know much about it. So I'm reading books about, hey, how to build a community. Tribes by Seth Godin's an amazing one for that. Now there's courses that are coming out with the academy, and then there's it's a progressional outline And then there's curriculum. So there's a digital marketing space. So there's plenty that I realize that is really weak for what I'm trying to build. So if you have an honest conversation with yourself on a yearly basis, there's more than 50 books you can read the following year of how to improve in that area.
So where did that start, Wally? Because that's a really interesting thing of diving into that many books, being that disciplined in doing that. Because I don't care how fast you read, in order to read that many books, you have to be disciplined with your time. So it's kind of a twofold question, if you will, is where'd that discipline come from to focus? And then how did it get focused into books and not, I don't know, running or building something in the garage?
Yeah. So there's a great book, pun intended, named Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Hal's been a great friend. He's been a great mentor. He's also one of my clients. So Hal is he teaches about your morning routine. So my morning routine starting 13 years ago is I'm up at 4 a.m. from 4 to 4:45. I am in an Epsom salt bath. I've got the audiobook going and I've got the book in front of me and I'm following along with the audiobook format. I'm ADD, ADHD, I'm dyslexic. So if I sit there and grab a book and I try to read it, it's just not going to go well. I'm going to end up daydreaming about something else and the mind just runs away. So what I learned, if I listen to the audiobook and I'm following the book, and it helps me digest it more. So I do that from 4:40 to 4:45 every morning, 15-minute drive to the gym with the trainer. In that 15-minute drive, I say my 3 morning affirmations. Wally, what's the point of dreaming big if you're not brave enough to live big? Go grab your life big. Number 2 is Rome was not built in a day. However, it was built day after day after day after day. Keep building. And lastly, number 3 is my questions are piercing. My answers are motivating. My presence is commanding. My success is untouchable. So I get to the gym by 5 a.m. and there till about 6 o'clock with a trainer. 6 o'clock, I head off to do cryotherapy. I'm home by like 6:15, 6:20. I've got a golf hitting bay at my house. I'll hit golf balls in practice or putting in the backyard for 15, 20 minutes, in the office by 7:30. So I've fed my mind, I've fed my spirit, I've fed my curiosity, I fed my imagination. I physically worked out in a 2.5, 3 hour window, and then I'm ready to tackle the day. So that it became all that got sparked by a mentor asking me. It was back in like 2013. A mentor asked me, "Hey, how many years have you been in the mortgage business?" And my response back then was like, I think it was like 14 years. And I said, he goes, "Have you been in the mortgage business 1 year 14 times, or have you truly been in the business 14 years?"
Ooh.
And when you ask yourself that question, you realize you're not compounding on your success. So most people go through the career, but to say, I said earlier, I've done this since 1999, so last 25 years. So have I built a business that's scalable and has grown and it can run with me or without me, and it's 25 years of compound success? Or do I start all over every single month? Do I start over every single year? Do I start over every single quarter? And I've really been in the business 1 year or 1 quarter or one whatever 25 times. And to me, that question was so pivotal because it changed the lenses that I look through, and it changed the understanding of how to compound my success. And another book, pun intended, Darren Hardy's book about compound effect is an amazing one. Entrepreneur Roller Coaster. I mean, I could talk about books for 10 hours if you wanted me
to. Talking about compounding your business, I'm really interested because I think there's the way you said, are you just starting new every month or, every year, however you want to look at that. I think there's a really interesting thing there because a lot of entrepreneurs can look at their business and go, okay, I'm doing these things wrong. I want to pivot to this direction. Sometimes it's a small pivot. Sometimes it's something big. But then the question you're kind of raising there is like, how do you know that you're actually compounding on what you were doing previously rather than just stepping into something completely different? Could you talk a little bit about teasing that out?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my book, I talk about the 9 most powerful words about leverage. It's I do it, we do it, they do it. any business owner whatsoever, it's me coming in, doing the tasks, creating models and systems around best practices of how to complete the task. Then the we do it, it's me doing it with a teammate, and I'm coaching them live. They're seeing me fix things live. They're seeing me follow the models and the steps. Then the they do it stage is them actually doing the work. I'm observing and I'm watching and I'm coaching them live. I think most entrepreneurs, unfortunately, they think they're delegating, but they're really dumping. And the difference between someone that is truly delegating, the person that they delegate to needs to walk away with a roadmap at the end of the delegation for them to follow. So one question I usually ask entrepreneurs that's really, it helps kind of resonate all this is how many weeks a year of vacation do you take? And unfortunately it's just a handful. But to say they say 2 weeks a year, great. If you took 3 weeks a year, what would happen to your business? Would it still grow? Would it still evolve without you? And a great question is it's a checkmate question, but how many months a year can you walk away from your business and it sustains without you? Very few people can answer that question, or even how many weeks. How many weeks or months can you walk away from your business and it grows without you? And that's usually one of the biggest things I see difference between a person that has learned how to delegate versus how to dump.
That's such a great phrase, I'll just share with you where I thought you were going. Is something I learned a long time ago in business. It is make versus buy, and there's a similar thing, but the delegation and the preparation as opposed to the dumping is so powerful. When you made this shift, so was this all happening around the 2013 mark when you were, when you started to shift the way you focus on your mornings? Because what I'd love to, well, let me just stop there because I've got a thought going on that.
Yeah, 2013 is a pivotal year for me. And I share in the book. So I've got two boys. Now they're 18 and 17. Brayden is my 18-year-old. We call him Brayden the Brave. And Alexander is my 16, about to be 17-year-old. We call him Alexander the Great. And when Alex was 5 years old back in 2013, we're going to Disneyland as a family trip. And I was on the phone. I was walking out to the front foyer, and he sees me, and I'm getting off the phone, and he's there. He's got his little Mickey Mouse backpack, and he's 5 years old. And my 5-year-old says, "Oh, Dad, you're coming with us?" He was so surprised to see me go on a family vacation because I missed more dinners than I ever made. I missed more sporting activities with the kids that I ever made. I missed more family activities or adventures or anything that I ever made. And even though I've been married for 19 years, there's definitely a period that I got addicted to business, addicted to success, and I've lost myself. Then, even though we were married, my wife, Niki, and I, I'm sure she probably felt like a single mom because everything had to fall on her shoulders. So to me, I realized that the family and the world that I was trying to build this business for, I got addicted to success, ego took over, and all these public, either figures or authors or speakers or people in the mortgage space are always applauding me, but I felt like a phony. I felt like a fraud. I felt like I was not doing what I need to be doing, which is being the best father and husband I can be. I was just appeasing the world.
So the follow-up to that is, all right, so now you've had this epiphany moment, a watershed moment in your life where you realize, thanks to your son who did the old coattail, "Hey, Dad, what's going on?" sort of thing. Now you've built a team because you couldn't have made it that far without a team. But you've got a team of this culture, and you need to change it to that culture. Walk us through that how you, because I can imagine that there were some people that were looking at you when you walked in the office after you had that moment that started looking at you kind of like, what the hell's going on with Wally, sort of thing. So how did you start to shape or reshape the culture of your team and the lifestyle that you took?
Yeah. So in the mortgage space, you're kind of measured by your volume. And I realized, 2013, I was doing about $36 million in loans in one calendar year. It was a lot of work and it was a lot of heavy lifting, but I was working with 43 different referral partners. And those 43 different referral partners, we call them onesies and twosies because they don't do much volume. Well, all 43 of them, the following year in 2014, I worked with 0 of all 43. I walked away from every relationship, and I only worked with 3 mega agents, which are bigger producer agents that had systems, had models, had procedures. So when I was able to do that, 2013 was 36 million, 2014 goes to 45 million, which is not crazy impressive, but I started to build a different team around me to be able to give me back my time. 2015, so 24 months later, we did 81 million. So from 36 million to 45 million to 81 million. But what's beautiful about that is when I was doing 36 million, I was only really taking a week or 2 weeks of vacation off a year. When it got to 81 million, almost 3 times as much 2 years later, I've been doing over 20 weeks of vacation a year since 2015. But you've got to train. I mean, you're 1,000% right, Otis, that you've got to be able to train the people around you or you've got to replace the people around you. So going from 2013 to 2014, 2015, there's not one single teammate that stayed on because now there's accountability. Now there's systems that they had to follow. Now it was different procedures. So I studied business and I had to figure out how to stop doing the best I can do and start doing it the best way it can be done. Stop doing the best I can do and start doing it the best way it can be done. And the results in 2015 were very fruitful.
Could you talk some about what you saw from like a cultural or more personal level there? Because I think, Dad, that's what's, I was kind of smiling at your question there because that's what's so interesting to me is we talk a lot from like the CEO, the entrepreneur of like, it took me 15 years of being all about money to realize I need work-life balance, like all this kind of stuff. But you don't really necessarily realize that it's like everyone you were bringing with you probably kind of self-selected into that same kind of culture. That it's, just to put into the broad bucket there of, being money hungry, working for the money, those kind of things, being money hungry makes it sound worse than, being incentivized by money. But then, as you're going through and you're making these changes, it's like you're looking at folks and you're like, okay, come on, Otis, you don't want to spend the weekend with your family? Why do you? And you start to really question those things. Can you talk a little bit about that, like more on the personal level, I guess?
Yeah, so I what Otis is referencing is the team culture, the culture around me, not only, the employees, but the teammates, but then also the referral partners. And I adopted a culture and it became our team slogan. Your opportunity is your responsibility. Whereas previously, their opportunity was always my responsibility because I was the team leader or the provider. So if they wanted to make an income, then it was their responsibility to make an income. They wanted to get a pay raise, it was their responsibility to get a new loan. They wanted to hit some financial goal, it's their responsibility. I stopped taking on the ownership of feeling like I was responsible for their success. So there was no one from the original team that was around that made it to 2015. And I had to be able to recruit a different type of person, a different type of behavioral style, a different type of someone with different habits.
So could you talk some then about the? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask. Well, in that same aspect, when you shifted, what vision did you create for yourself and the business? And I'll reference this. I know a handful of real estate. I have a couple of real estate agents that are good friends. A couple of mortgage folks that I know. And I've asked them that, and I've always found it very interesting that most of them, particularly in the mortgage, they don't seem to have that. It's kind of where you were 13 years ago, kind of the grind it. So was that part of the shift is now I have a vision for who and what and where I want to be? And if so, could you share some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's in my book also. It's just chapter 14 is how I was able to get freedom of the day to day. And then chapter 15 was my succession plan succeeded. So chapter 15 breaks down, I created a 10-year vision of what a
Mm.
succession plan looked like. And the 10-year vision, I think most people, unfortunately, they overestimate what they can do in 1 year. They underestimate what they can do in 5 years. So if I look through those lenses, I gave myself plenty of time to be a crock pot in business versus a microwave in business, which allowed me to build something called Team Wally University. And with Team Wally University, I built a team instead of bought a team. Most employers want to say, hey, I want someone with 10 years experience. I want them to know this, 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 and this. And they go out and they buy an employee. What I did is I created a graduate program, went around to the 5 universities here in Dallas that are around us, and I met with the head counselor of each one of them and said, hey, who do you know that's a graduating senior that has some sort of sports background, if it's they play football or whatever, but they're not going to make it in the big leagues, that they had got a GPA of over 3.0 or more. And then I went through like this list of curriculum things I needed. And I said, in return, if you can introduce me to them, I built Team Wally University, where a loan officer assistant can become a production partner within 12 months. They're making over $100,000 a year. Then they go from production partner to senior production partner. That income level is $250,000 a year. And I showed a graduate program over a 10-year window of how to build a mortgage career for someone. And then I also showed them success stories that I've had with other teammates and what curriculum I'll be teaching them throughout the year. And I coined the slogan of you get paid to earn to learn. And the mindset behind it is, I will teach you, but you're going to give me back my time. I will invest in you, but I'm going to make an ROI off your efforts. So as I learned to build a team that way, I built a team with young men that were competitive, that were self-driven, that understood extra work outside of like the office, if it's evenings or weekends. And it was the type of person that I needed to be able to help propel the business moving forward.
Could you talk some about the design of that pipeline? Because I think that's an amazing thing. I think we've talked with a few other people on the show about building that pipeline because they needed the talent. I remember one of my first business plans, I talked about building that pipeline from the U of A here in Tucson. And one of the things that I realized, and the business did not do well enough for this problem to rear its head to me, actually. But one of the things I realized was it's like, great, so I hire an intern each semester, and then that intern goes into this, and then they go into that, and then it's like, shoot, well, how am I going to have, just as a for instance, 5 COOs in 3 years? That doesn't make sense. And it's like the pipeline can kind of get clogged up along the way as you're trying to continually move people through there. Could you talk a little bit about how you designed it in a way that, you're not going to hit any of those roadblocks, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, my world is incredibly scalable because in chapter 6 of the book is called 6-lane highway. So most mortgage people only have a 1-lane highway, which they go to a realtor, they get a referral, they close a loan, they go back to the realtor groveling for another referral. It's just a rat race over and over and over. What I've been able to build is I get a referral from a realtor, just like every other loan officer. I take that referral and I refer it out to a CPA, a financial advisor, a family will attorney, an insurance agent. And then I get back a minimum, usually 2 referrals from them to be able to grow the business. So every single year, the reason why the business has done so well, especially even with high rates and downturns, is there are 6 different lanes of referral streams that I'm getting. My database, which I've turned into a data bank because now I've got a whole department that focuses on it. Then from there, you got the CPAs, financial advisors, family will attorneys, insurance agents, and realtors, the 6-lane highway. So with the 6-lane highway referral streams, all I really need is more loan officers to service that 6-lane highway. So there's not a limit to it. And as it goes from loan officer assistant production partner to senior production partner, when you become a senior production partner, now you've got a pod underneath you. And if you study much about the military, there's usually max of like 3 to tops 5 different people underneath each person that's in leadership from it. And I don't know too much about them. And obviously, Otis, you probably know a lot more than I do around that. But the ability to be able to have pod leaders and then those pod leaders continuously make a residual income off the teammates underneath them. And it's the ability to be scalable through human leverage, systems leverage, and models leverage.
So how do you keep that motivation going? Because obviously when you start to start to come down, delegate down. You start to allow more autonomy for people underneath you. What was the process, or what is the process that you set them up for success? You know, because one of the things I talk about, and by the way, yes, you nailed it, 3 to 5. That's a rule of thumb, and that I learned very early on in the Army. But the other piece that we always talk about is that autonomy in my box. And what process do you use to help filter that down in a sense of go do this and do it the best way that you see fit, and then call me if you need help?
Yeah, that's definitely not the way that we do it. So we have a model, and a model are the steps of step by step by step, how you pick up the phone, what a lead application is. From a lead app, what are the dreams and goals call specifically? What are the milestones you've got to hit? Now, is every single one of my teammates say the call exactly word for word as each other? No. But the high points, the results are the same. You can pick up any one of their files or go into any one of their segments. The notes are going to be exactly the same because the bullet points are measured by their results. And then when you have a model that's built on best practices, and we use technology to be able to keep them accountable with the standards. The standards are if you get a referral, you've got to respond back within 2 hours. Well, you've got a mail parser reader on the emails when we get referrals from a realtor or a CPA or whoever. And if it's past 2 hours, that mail parser's spoken back to Salesforce, the CRM, then it's got an email reminder to the loan officer. Hey, you got a referral over 2 hours ago. You haven't responded back yet. You've got an hour, or the next email is CC'd you and your manager on there that you've not responded back to it. So it creates that accountability from it. And the end of the day, it's like I'm helping build systems where it doesn't slip through the crack, but it's built on best practices of the model.
I'm curious, does that come more so from the industry itself, working with mortgages and, the lending process there, or is that a little bit of your leadership philosophy of giving them the model so that they can grow, and then they can go from there and they can innovate and all that kind of stuff? But you got to give them the model to get them through that first, 12 months you talked about.
It's probably a combination, but I'd probably toss a third one in there, and it's simply survival. What you don't want to do is, what I've learned is the mistakes I made earlier, 2013, 14, 15, and candidly even made them in like 2019, is giving someone the ability to dilute your brand. And here in the mortgage space, specifically in Dallas, I've got a brand, and that brand is speed to lead. That brand is the lowest rates around, the fastest closings around. That's my brand. That's what the industry says about my caliber client. Now, if I've got a loan officer that is missing closings, if I've got a loan officer that is not calling leads back in time, if I've got a loan officer that's not following the model, then that's going to dilute my brand, and then that's going to decrease the business for everyone else as a team. And then I created something called Team Wally Annuity. And the annuity is that these pod leaders, now they're the ones that keep their pods accountable because they're making a residual income off what the whole team does, not just average income. So if I've got a loan officer on my team, say they make $500,000 a year, about $300,000 of their income is what they've earned off the loans that they close, but they're making 10 basis points. So it's roughly another $200,000 in income residually off the team's efforts. Well, to be able to keep that, you've got to be able to keep your other teammates accountable. And again, if your opportunity is your responsibility, the self-accountability from each one of the pod leaders is how it's been built.
So I want to jump into this because I find it, I don't know, almost ironic, because your business, one of your businesses now is 24/7 mindset. And I find the irony in the fact that you shifted out of the 24/7 business. So talk to me through this whole this idea that it's not 24/7 business like you were, and now it is 24/7 mindset. What's that correlation there?
Yeah, I mean, When I say the words 24/7, most people would think 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? That's kind of been the slogan out that you got to hustle, you got to grind, you got to drive, you got to take the hill. What I've learned is when you do that, you'll come out of the great gates really well, but you'll fizz out. I mean, we're all humans, right? So you can't go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week forever. And that's just simply doing the best you can do, but you're going to burn out. So what I learned that for me to be successful, I became a sprinter instead of trying to be a marathon runner. And as I became a sprinter, I'm in town for 2-3 weeks, I'm gone for a week. I'm in for town, I'm going balls out for 2-3 weeks, I'm gone for a week. And the ability for me to be able to have a quality of life, it went from working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to, hey, I golf 3-4 times a week. So if you golf 3-4 times a week, there's only 24 hours left in the week to work out of the 40. Well, if I take 20 weeks of vacation with my family, 10 weeks with my wife and my 2 sons, 5 weeks with my wife and I, then I've got 5 weeks a year of golf trips. And if you take 20 weeks of vacation a year, there's only 7 months left in the year to work. So it went to, hey, how do I build a business that pays me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to where I only have to work in it 24 hours a week, 7 months a year. What does that have to look like? Stephen Covey wrote an amazing book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And my favorite habit is beginning with the end in mind. So when I build a 10-year succession plan, I got to the win much faster than 10 years, but I gave myself a 10-year window to make those incremental moves that gave me back my time.
Excuse me. I'm really curious looking at, whether it's looking at your own experiences or maybe looking at some of the people that, you brought on through Wally University there, of the perspective of the, like you said, the grind, the 24/7, working 24/7 type of thing. And then everyone we talk to, there's always this kind of ironic thing of like, I was in business and I did that for 15 years. And then I had this aha moment and now with my wife and kids and everything is better and all of this. But then there's this really interesting thing of, okay, well, what about that first 15 years? Would you looking back on it, encourage somebody to try to find that balance early? Do you think it's something where you need a little bit of that crazy grind, but maybe not 15 years, but it's like, hey, you got to do that for 5 years. Then you can start looking at balance. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would just say that the biggest thing is you got to understand is you have to do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do. You have to do what you have to do until you can do what you can want to do. I started when I was 19 years old. There's a ton of mistakes that I made to be able to get along the way. But so chapter 4-6 of my book talks about the quadrants. And I focused in my 20s, which is the first quadrant, which was rookie of the year. I focused in my 30s of being so rookie of the year, you're learning the process, you're failing forward. In my 30s, it was star quarterback. So star quarterback, you got to learn leadership, right? Mm-hmm. You can't throw the ball to yourself. You've got to be able to hand off. You got to have models. You got to have trust. And in my 40s, I went from being the star quarterback to simply the head coach. Well, when you're the head coach, you got your little clipboard on the sideline. You can't get in the game and tackle someone. You can't get in the game and do this. You've got to have leaders in place. So now you're working on your leverage time. I'm 45, so in my 50s, the goal for that quadrant is the owner quadrant. So I get off the sidelines, and then you become the Robert Krafts, and you're in the press box in the box. But to me, it was looking through different lenses. In my 20s, it was grind. I had to do what I had to do. In my 30s, I learned how to do what I want to do through leverage on a team, leverage through systems, leverage through technologies.
And I'm laughing to myself because you said you can't if you're the quarterback, you can't throw the ball to yourself unless you're Patrick Mahomes. He did that the other day.
Oh, come on, Dad. That was Lamar Jackson who did that.
Oh, was that Lamar Jackson?
It was Lamar Jackson against Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, come on.
Oh, well, see, I was close. I had the right game at least in my head.
Yeah.
But
yes, sir.
What a freak of nature athlete. What a great way to think about the quadrants of life and how those fit in and how you replicate. And I'll always love Camden and I always love that sports analogy. And one of many things that you've talked about that I learned and took notes on today. It was just awesome. And I'm, for me, what I learned as I'm looking back and trying to pick one is the 24/7. I love that. I love the way that you've taken that and turned it into the 24 hours a week and 7 months a year instead of the 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That is such a powerful way to think about it. Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
Yeah, I got two because there was a quick one that just came to mind talking about the quadrants of life, those decades, looking at it like that. When I coach rugby, I joke at least probably every Saturday when I'm out there with the boys of like, God, this is that part of the day where I want to hit something. And I don't get to hit something anymore, and it always feels weird when I'm out there. But I guess I just turned 28 a little bit ago. I got 2 more years, and then that feeling will start to go away. I'll find my head coach mindset a little bit more. So I love that. But no, the really big one, talking about delegate versus dump, it reminds me of something that Torrance Hart said on an episode a while back, Dad, about how a lot of leaders think they're being good leaders by being hands off. And it's like, hey, here you go, Wally, run with it. Oh, God, I'm a good leader. Look at me letting him innovate, figure out the right way, all that. It's like, no, it's really just a cop-out to not lead. Because you're not delegating, you're just dumping. You're just handing it over to them and saying, go run with it. Gosh, I'm such a good leader. Rather than like, look, here's what you really need to do. Go do it. And I'm going to be here to help you, which is what real leadership actually is.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah, I mean, I think
Wally, how about you?
Candidly, it's interesting. It's like you get to a certain level and you forget where you started. What I enjoy today is kind of reminiscing a lot of mistakes and a lot of lessons that I learned earlier in my career. You get to a certain age, you're just kind of on autopilot. You get to a certain level of success, you're just on autopilot. But it was I feel there's a blessing inside of me where I feel like I've come a long way. So I appreciate you guys kind of pulling that out of me today.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, that is always a good thing to be reminded of where you started and the journey you made. Hey, Wally, how do folks find you, connect with you, see what you got going on, sign up for Wally University?
I appreciate that. So on Facebook or Instagram, so there's a private Facebook group where I post on a daily basis. I share either content, scripts, email templates, models, systems. So if you just go to Facebook and put 24-7 Mindset Academy, and it'll take you right to that page. You just get in from there. But there's tools, there's easy resources I'm able to give out for how to build models, how to build systems, how to build technologies. 24/7 Mindset was built around for the sake of mortgage, but it's pretty neat. I'm working on 24/7 Mindset for financial advisors. Now that book will be coming out in 2025. Then it'll be 24/7 Mindset for CPAs, 24/7 Mindset for family will attorneys, insurance agents, and realtors. So it'll be pretty neat to reduplicate the 6-lane highway, but right now it's focused mostly on mortgage.
Great, man. Hey, Wally, we really appreciate you carving time out to hang out with us and share some of your experiences and life lessons with us.
No, thank you so much for having me. Hopefully we'll get to do it again soon.
Oh yeah. Camden, run us out.
I was going to say, definitely do it again soon, because something you said there, Wally, I want to jump on, but I know we don't have time for it, so it'll be a part 2. But all right, thank y'all for listening to today's episode of 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis, and a special thanks to our guest, Wally Elibiary, for joining us today. Hope I got that 95% right, at least. Remember, you can watch full episodes of the show on YouTube at 10X Your Team. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to pass along to other lifelong learners in your tribe so that they can enjoy it too. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. As always, the full archive of episodes available at www.10xyourteam.net. Thanks again. We'll see y'all next time.